Good afternoon and welcome to today's Software AG webcast titled A More Agile and Adaptive Government. My name is Will Carter and I'll be your webinar host. Today's webcast will be co-presented by David Taylor and Rick McEachern, both of Software AG. David is currently Vice President of State and Local Government Solutions for Software AG, where he serves as market strategist and subject matter expert for these government practices. Prior to joining Software AG, David was the Chief Information Officer of the state of Florida. Rick is currently Vice President of Product Marketing. As we move through today's presentation, I invite you to submit any questions that you may have. You may do this via the Q&A box, which is located at the top right corner of your WebEx session. We will do our best to answer all of your questions. In the event that we are unable to answer your questions, your submissions will be recorded, and today's presenters will be back in touch with you as soon as possible. Additionally, today's presentation is being recorded. This recording will be available to you later this week should you wish to access it on YouTube. Please email the webinar host for the link. Before I turn today's presentation over to David and Rick, I would like to briefly introduce you to Software AG. Software AG offers the first end-to-end digital business platform based on open standards with integration, process management, adaptive application development, real-time analytics, and enterprise architecture management as core building blocks to help customers build their digital futures today. With over 45 years of customer-centric innovation, Software AG is ranked as a leader in many innovative and digital technology categories. Software AG has more than 4,300 employees and is active in 70 countries. It is now my pleasure to welcome David Taylor.
Thank you, Will, and thank you all for joining us on this webinar. In the years since I was a state CIO, I've seen a rapid increase in the number of state and local agencies pursuing a digital government strategy. Essential to any digital government strategy is the design and implementation of a digital platform. Today we'll be showing you the Web Methods AgileApps platform. AgileApps is a digital business process management and application platform as a service that allows subject matter experts as well as developers to visually build and deploy process-driven applications. This platform enables business analysts and subject matter experts who may not otherwise specialize in software development to specify, build, and deploy an end-user solution themselves. It also allows IT managers to use entry-level programmers rather than expensive senior developers to deploy these new applications. The applications created in AgileApps are modern and mobile-enabled. They can be easily connected to social networks, and they have built-in customizable dashboards for workers and management. These applications can be deployed in the public cloud or run on your own servers. However, if you're not yet ready to run applications into the cloud, that's okay too. Anything you build in AgileApps can be run in your data center today, and then without modification, be moved into the cloud tomorrow. For the first time, business users can solve their own problems without creating shadow IT problems for the IT department. So why are these things important? Government agencies have always had just two options for applications. In my experience working in government, I found that most applications exist to track things or cases. A case can be a call to a 311 center, a request for citizen services, a help desk ticket, a new hire, or even a travel approval request. Each of these applications were either built or bought to manage one specific program or business function. I found there's little or no sharing of data between those applications, which meant the workers needed to use multiple systems to do their jobs. From an IT perspective, all these applications were difficult and costly to track and maintain, and this used up most of my agency's IT capability. It was difficult or impossible to make these old applications work on mobile devices or connect them to social networks to better engage our citizens. There were never enough resources left over to keep up with the demand for new business solutions, or to modify older applications to meet the ever-changing programmatic policies. This is a common problem shared by all government CIOs. So how did we get into that situation? Government agencies have always had just two options for acquiring applications. Do we build or do we buy them? This is a question that's haunted government for decades, with each leadership change prompting organizations to change their views on whether to construct or procure new software solutions. Although custom-built software provides IT with complete control over all aspects of the application design, middleware, and user experience, it can be very costly to develop in terms of time, money, and resources. Beyond the initial project delivery, it's also costly to manage and maintain these applications. This increases the total cost of ownership and further limits the IT resources available for new business solutions. In contrast, buying a commercial off-the-shelf package or a software-as-a-service solution can be faster and less expensive. However, these have limited customization options and cannot be easily extended with custom code. The result is usually a poor fit with the organization's existing business practices, forcing organizations to change their internal processes to match the limitations and capabilities supported by the software. This dilemma is amplified for state and local government agencies. Due to budget and staff constraints, government IT often can't keep up with the demand for the new business applications, since available resources needed to maintain the current application portfolio is limited. In response to this, shadow IT groups commonly form to work around central IT, as development and other staff are simply overburdened. As a result, shortcuts are taken that lead to solutions that are non-standard or older technology choices. I bet most of you know dozens, if not hundreds, of old Microsoft Access applications that are running on your networks. These are a huge headache for any IT department. Non-standard development results in a more complex IT environment, unmanaged application portfolios, and increased security vulnerability. So what's needed is a way to achieve the benefits of custom application development, but with the speed, savings, and low maintenance cost of COTS or SaaS-based solutions. Fortunately, with recent advances in application development technology, there is a third choice. AgileApps is an innovative application platform as a service with business process management functionality at its core. For those of you not familiar with business process management, called BPM for short, it's a holistic management approach to aligning the organization's business processes with the wants and needs of workers and citizens. BPM is the best way to ensure your applications are effective and efficient, flexible, and integrate with other systems. Therefore, AgileApps is basically a continuous process improvement baked into an application development platform. When you combine all the capabilities of application platform as a service with the human-centric workflow capabilities of business process management, you now have the ability for subject matter experts, business analysts, and entry-level developers to visually build and deploy process-driven application solutions in a matter of weeks rather than months. Now, you may have heard the term application platform as a service before. Those are usually platforms designed to be used by experienced programmers to help speed up application creation times. But AgileApps differs from the developer-driven platform as a service approach in a number of ways. In this case, no advanced coding skills are needed to create applications in AgileApps. It combines a visual process designer with a library of configurable, plug-and-play functions that enable the rapid creation of multi-channel applications without the need for programming or other specialized knowledge. Everything you need is already in the box. And as you can see on the slide in front of you, there's application elements for engagement through the web, through email, and through social media. Ways to interact with workers through case management, application functionality, inboxes, task lists, and so on and so forth. You can see the slides. All the functionality that you need to create a workflow application is already in the box. So AgileApps takes an innovative orchestration-based approach to application creation. It allows you to focus on the workflows, rules, and business processes needed to manage your programs instead of focusing on writing code. So let's take a deeper look into how this works. First, using the AgileApps designer, you can begin using a template application to jumpstart your solution. One large county that we'll be talking about later started by using our service desk template application as a model for the 311 application. You could also start with that, or you could select another template to work with. If you want to start from scratch, you can begin using the wizard features to describe the data fields you need and the relationship between them. Again, there's no coding involved. You can choose to import your data fields in from Excel or any delimited file, and then use the pick list to configure those fields. Most likely you already know what fields you need because they exist on paper forms in your agency or on older applications that you're replacing. Then you visually build out the business process workflow by dragging and dropping boxes that represent workflow steps and assigning roles, rules, service level metrics, things like that to each one. This is like using Microsoft Visio, connecting boxes with arrows to describe the business workflow. Next, you customize the business rules, the web forms, the multi-channel interfaces used to interact with citizens and case managers by simply using drop-down menus and lists. These interfaces will include Twitter, email, Facebook, and many others. And finally, with one button, you can compile and publish the application, which will run in any browser or on any mobile device. Using this approach allows subject matter experts to directly transfer their knowledge of the business problem into a working model that demonstrates and validates the business requirements for the solution. AgileApps, therefore, can be used as an easy-to-use design and prototyping tool that's also production enables the result. Now let's talk about two examples of government agencies that have used AgileApps to solve business problems. The City of Durham, North Carolina needed an application to implement an energy grant program. AgileApps enabled them to design and publish a multi-user web and mobile-enabled application that exactly met their project needs. Again, this is all achieved without any coding. The application was hosted in the cloud during the grant period and then rapidly decommissioned at the end of the grant. There was no ongoing cost for hosting or maintenance for that application. In a larger implementation, Hillsborough County, Florida used AgileApps to rapidly develop a replacement for their 311 call center system. The 311 manager, a non-programmer with only 1 day of training in AgileApps, used the existing help desk template that we mentioned before and modified the data fields and process flows to meet the unique needs of her county. Implementation of the new system took only a few weeks, rather than the typical months or longer needed for similar 311 systems. AgileApps resolves the build versus buy dilemma by introducing a third option, assemble. Applications like the 311 system can be assembled with AgileApps to dramatically reduce the time from the business need definition to the business solution delivery. By orchestrating unique solutions to your business problems, government can achieve the benefits of both building and buying solutions without the shortcomings. Finally, I want to thank you all for your interest and attendance on this webinar today. I look forward to any questions you may have for us after the demonstration. So next up is Rick McEachin, our expert on AgileApps. Rick was a co-founder of the company that originally developed the software, and he will demonstrate the ease and power of the AgileApps platform. So, Rick?
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. You should begin to see my screen share right now. All right. Well, there are a lot of benefits in using AgileApps. We covered some of them as David's good description of what can be done to accelerate the time to create an application, reduce the risk of creating an application by assembling instead of writing from scratch, and by using reusable building blocks to really pull in the functionality that you need when you need it. But how do you do it? There's a lot of building blocks in this platform, and there's a lot that needs to be considered. We've all heard claims about being able to build applications very quickly, but can you really do it? And can you do it in a way that a non-programmer could relate to? Can you do it in a way that people on my team can relate to without going back to IT and negotiating for resources or trying to build an application or application justification? So AgileApps is designed from the perspective of a subject matter expert. If you've got someone on the team who has, they're a business analyst, they've got some experience in Excel, they have the skill sets they need to assemble the application building blocks to create applications that are fully web-enabled, that are responsive, that are mobile, that are process-driven, and that can be customized on the fly without the detailed involvement of IT. Of course, you still want to engage IT if an integration with a back-end system was something that you wanted to do. But for many use cases, be able to build a collaborative web application just visually through the web front end is all that's required. All right, so what we're doing right now is we're looking at an application, a very simple application called IT Service Request. This application is, of course, web-enabled, but it's also very interactive. You can drag and drop and rearrange it. You can see that the application starts with a dashboard, and, of course, you can add as many different dashboards as you want to customize it for different roles. You might have a person on your team who is a finance manager and someone on your team who manages projects, and they might care about seeing different information in a different way, and so they can have a different experience. We have different tabs. Tabs are basically objects in the system, and they allow you to navigate the information that's being managed in interesting ways and see that information in interesting ways. And this platform was designed from the perspective that features and functions aren't hidden. They're out in front of you so that you can easily use the application, and people on your team can come up to speed very quickly. To give you an example, here we're looking at IT service requests. You can see a number of color-coded IT service requests that are here, and they have a certain priority and certain information about them. And I can have different views, which are filtered ways of looking at this information. So if I want to look at, just show me all the requests that are unassigned today, or show me all new requests, I can get that information and I can look at it in filtered ways. But if I want to look at the details, I would simply click on a record, bring it up, and I have everything I need to resolve this particular request all on the same page. And now this is really powerful because in so many applications you have to tab back and forth between different parts of an application, cut, copy, paste, re-enter, save. But that's just not the case here. Here, everything you need is on one single page design so that I can interact with the data in the application form. I can, of course, rearrange all these fields any way I want to. I can add new fields as I need to. We can see down here that there is communication built in to this form. So if I want to communicate with a colleague, can you help with this? I can communicate directly from here. And when I send this email, not only will my colleague get the information, but it will become part of the case record. An activity history is here as well, so that any changes that are updated with the record are part of the activity streams for that. So it increases transparency, increases auditability. It makes sure that if someone on the team, the case is reassigned to someone else on the team, they have the complete history of what happened and when it happened. And then off to the right, you'll see that there is the other information that you care about. Like, for example, you want to keep track of hours spent processing the case, you can do that. Tasks that have been assigned to me. Do I want to approve this or do I want to reject this? I can see other tasks that have been assigned to other team members showing up here, and I can see tasks that are completed. So basically, every record needs to go through some sort of business process to take it through completion, whether it's a request for IT service request, or whether it's a request to have a permit assigned, or a request to, like a Citizen 311 application where people are requesting government services to fix a pothole or turn off a gas leak. It goes through a process. It goes through a prioritized service level agreement where, based on the request, different people need to be involved. And you can also see all the different processes that can be started and stopped and their status at the same time right here. And so it's really easy to look at a particular process that's in a flow, and you can see where we are in the overall context of this approval process and who's got the next step to approve it before it goes to the next step. And then, of course, any file that's part of a case, processing a case, is part of a record too, and it's right here in front of you. So, if, let's say, for example, in government, we're communicating with a citizen and they say they're sending in some kind of form or something like that, and they send it in by email. Well, that'll automatically be attached to the record, so that if you want to look at the content that's sent, whether it's a copy of a driver's license or a scan or an application or some other permit, that will automatically be attached to the case. I can view it right here. I've got everything I need. I don't need to download it to my desktop and open another app and view it and then take some action on it. It's all right here. All right. So the basic application includes the ability to manage processes, manage tasks, manage information through forms, communicate with colleagues and collaborate, and a complete activity history. Dashboards are included, as well as the ability to create any kind of custom report that you want to. All right, so you may be saying, All right, that's good. I've seen stuff like this, but really the promise of this webinar was that we could build applications quickly. I have no idea how long it takes to build an application. So we'll show you. We'll go into that in just right now. So a common use case is, let's just take permitting as an example. And if you're like any other agency, there's just so many spreadsheets to keep track of important data. And the challenge is always who's got the latest version of the spreadsheet. You emailed it, I didn't get it. I'm looking at a spreadsheet, it's not the right version. And we're clogging up the networks with the same copy or slightly changed copies of the same spreadsheet. And so the idea here is, well, what if we could take something like this, which is just, for example, just pulled it off the internet, is really just something that a government agency uses for managing permitting. Or if we could turn something like this into a collaborative application, my entire team could look at, they could manage, they could update, they could extend as they need to, they could write reports around. Would that be helpful? And so let's do it. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So this is a spreadsheet, just a basic spreadsheet someone was using to keep track of government permitting. Nothing fancy going on here. What I'll do is I'll just copy the information that's being managed. All right. Next thing we'll do is we'll go back to the application environment. I'll point out that while I'm looking at, creating a brand new application, every time you create an application, you can share it with people on your team. Whether it's a package that's downloaded from the starter template catalog or it's a brand new application that's created, it can be shared with members on your team and they can set up. And that's just the capability of the platform. So you could have multiple applications. You might start with one, but over time that can grow into all kinds of applications that you're using to track, manage, and collaborate around. And the platform supports multiple applications. So let's go ahead and build a brand new application. And I'll go to the Applications menu item. And I could either go to the Marketplace and pull up a template, but no, this is a special permitting application, a custom application. Let's create a brand new one. As David said, there's two options here. There's the option where you can use the wizard and create your object models and define the relationships between them, and very easily done. In this particular example, we'll just create by import because this is a single spreadsheet, no complex relationships. We'll just go ahead and paste that in, and then I'll use the wizard to make some decisions about what I see. So, for example, we see that this is project number, a text field. That's probably okay. Text field for project name, expiration date. I'll just set that as a date field. Issue date, I'll set that as a date field. Authorized capacity, that's the number. This is just an example. It could have been any kind of data. Licensee, keep that as text field. Waterway, text field. State, because there's only a limited number of states, we'll make this a pick list to choose from. And description, looks like they have common kinds of descriptions. So I will turn this into a pick list as well. All right, so gone through and I've defined the different types of data elements in the application. Next thing I'll do is say this is water permitting, water permits application, and let's go ahead and create the application. When I press create this application, the platform is taking the field definitions that we just defined, and it's creating the data model behind the scenes. It's also creating the API and everything else that's needed to access this data from different sources. And it imported the data at the same time. So let's take a look at this. All right. I'm now entering the water permits application. We've created a starter dashboard that shows all of the water permits listed here. We can see that all the water permits by state is the default best guess dashboard that's present. All right, so we got the basic setup of an application structure. You can see that I've got my water permits over here, and that data is there. And I shouldn't have any reports that are defined as yet, maybe some standard reports. So now let's talk about what we need to do to take this to the next level. First of all, let's say we want to simplify the way this record looks. So what we can do is, you might recall I said views give you a filtered way of looking at all the data that's managed live in the database. We're looking at the all records view, and what I want to do is edit that view to maybe show a little bit less information, maybe make it a little bit more user-friendly. And so what I'll do is I'll remove a couple of columns, modified by, date modified, not really important. Maybe I do care about state though. Let me preview how that's going to look. Maybe that's fine, or maybe what really matters to me is let's move state up a little higher on the list. There we go. I'll just do another preview, see if it's starting to look the way I want. It is. That looks about right. So let's save that. And I'll make this view available to everyone. There we go. So now I've modified the default view so that I'm showing the state information as the first column, project number, project name, date, and capacity. And you can create as many different views as you want, filtering it in lots of different ways. And it's just as easy as what we just did. So customizing the UI without the involvement of IT is pretty straightforward. Now let's take a look at the next level down. I'll go ahead and open one of these records, and we'll see that project number, project name, dates, capacities, licenses, states. All right, maybe this is not organized so user-friendly. Maybe there's some improvements we could make here. Why don't we just adjust this a little bit, make it a little more friendly? And to do that, I'll go into the object. The object is basically the same thing as the tab, water permit. You go into the object, and the object that keeps the data unfolds to show you all the different types of attributes that can be modified to make the application work the way you want it. For now, let's just go to forms, and I can have as many forms as I want using this data and assign to different roles. As I mentioned before, you might have someone who enters permit information, and you might have a finance manager who approves it. Maybe they see similar or different information in the form layout, so you can create custom forms and assign them to roles. It's very flexible. For now, we'll just look at the default layout, and we'll say that really what would make this more friendly for me is let's put state up here, project name before project number, maybe issue date, expiration date, capacity, and waterway description. If I was a domain expert, I would know, which is the most friendly way people would think about this information. But for now, that makes sense to me. So let's go ahead and save those changes. I've modified the form metadata so that now when I go and access any of these records, you'll notice that the form has changed. Date is now here, project name, project number, and it's just that easy. Now, let's say, for example, someone in your agency realized that, wow, now that we have a collaborative environment, there's some additional information we want to track that wasn't tracked before. Maybe there's a regulation that we want to try to capture. That can be done as well. And, for example, what we would do is we would just add a brand new field. And you can pick any kind of field type that you want that's supported, text area, calculation fields, pick lists, percentages, lookups, image fields, geolocation. There's just so much that can be added here that you can customize it any way you want. But for now, let's say, let's pick something new, and let's say that we'll just do a pick list, right? We'll just do something simple. And we're going to say, does it require annual inspection? Just something like that. It could be anything you want, and just yes and no. And I'll just go ahead and save that. Now I'll go to the forms area and make sure it's placed where I want it to be. Requires annual inspection, that's correct. All right, and so I'm now at the form, and I can see, does it require annual inspection? Yes. All right. So I just modified a form. I've added a data element, and next thing I want to do is make this a little bit more collaborative, a little bit more user-friendly. So when I'm looking at this, I can see that this is regarding water permit 14661, and that is the permit project number. But let's make it a little bit easier for people to manage this data. Let's go to the object again, and it's a technical term, but it's something called record locator. When you're designing an application, you have the ability to specify how records are identified. And here what we'll do is we'll just edit and modify the record locator. And instead of just project number, let's go ahead and add project name. So now the record identifier fields will be both project number and project name. Just a step we're doing to make it a little friendlier as we think about making an application for your team. All right. Now we can see as I bring up a record, I can see the project number and the project name. I can see exactly what I'm dealing with, and it makes it easier to work. Now, because this is a new application, it automatically created a role as manager, and I'm signed in as manager, but that's not enough. I want this to be a collaborative application, right? So what I need to do next is create a brand new role. Let me do this, and I will just, for the time being, I will just clone this role as manager, and I will add another role, call it specialist. Someone who adds the permitting data into the system. Okay, so I've added a role called specialist, and the next thing I want to do is go to access management, and I'm going to let both applications have access, both roles have access to this application. Here. Water permits application. All right, so let's go ahead and make sure that Rick has access and both the roles have access, manager and specialist. All right, that's good. So created a brand new role in the system and can either dial in or dial out the different kinds of access permissions it has. And so now both of these roles have access to this application. All right. So let's go back to the this next part, which is let's customize it a little bit. Let's say, all right, specialists don't need to see everything that everybody else does. So let's create a new tab reference, and we'll get there. All right, specialists really only need to see water permits. They don't need to see anything else other than water permits. All right, there we go. And now let me do this. Let me log out and log back in, and that will just refresh everything. And since I added myself as both roles of manager and specialist, I should now see two different perspectives that let me switch between them as a developer. So I can now see that I can take on the role of a manager and see all of the objects I have access to, or I can take a look at a specialist and see that they have a different application experience where all that they really can interact with is water permits. So I'm able to customize it on the fly so that different roles have custom experiences And that's really important because these types of things traditionally would require IT involvement. Now let's do something else, because really we talked about collaboration, and one of the things you need to do to collaborate, of course, is create processes that are integrated with the data that we're managing. So let's go to processes, and I will click on that, and it'll say we don't have any processes here. Let's create a brand new one, and it'll open up the design palette and bring up a number of business process management tools. This is super easy. If you and your team are in a conference room with a whiteboard and you talk about, well, what can we do to make this better? Someone's going to stand up, grab a pen, and start to outline a process. If you can do that on a whiteboard, you can create a runnable, executable process in this platform that starts to make everyone's life easier. All right, so what are the palette tools that you can work with? One, of course, is a user task. You assign a task to somebody. Another is an approval step where you just want them to accept or reject the task that's coming to them. You can send emails, you can execute rules, business rules, you can connect to a web service, you can do decision switching, parallel switching, multiple different ways of getting tasks going in parallel or in sequence. Let's just go ahead and do something as a very simple starter event. Next thing we will do is we will just create an approval step. All right, and we're going to call this manager review. Just something easy. Manager review, and we'll say this should be done in 4 hours. And I'm going to say that this manager review should be completed by someone with the role of a manager. Now, you can assign this to a team or to an individual or to a role. In this case, we're just assigning it to a role just to get the application started. And of course, if you have more complex criteria for determining who gets a specific task, you can use a rule set to determine who that task flows to. But for now, anyone who is a manager will get the approval task on the permit that's being submitted. Okay, so creating that. Let's go ahead and hook them up. We'll go ahead and end this with an end event. And we'll save it, and we'll just call this manager approval, something simple. All right. Now, what happens is it created a process. It also created a revision history for me down here. So this is revision 1. This application is enormously forgiving. So let's say that tomorrow you want to experiment with version 2.0 of this process. And so you make some changes, you try it out, and you realize it just isn't better or we've messed it up. You can go back to revision 1 and you can revert back to it, and that will be the process that's in place the next time a permit is entered into the system. So having a system that's built around subject matter experts, having a system that's very forgiving if people make mistakes, but can go back to the last working version of it is part of what this does. All right, so we've created a process. How does that look? All right, I'm looking here, and I'll bring up a record, and you can see now that I have a process that shows up, and it's called a manager approval process. All right, and the specialist sees that. Now, because this is a case management application, users have the ability to create ad hoc processes on the fly, or to send or to use established processes on the fly. And so it really depends on what the information worker needs to get this done. For example, if they feel like they need an ad hoc workflow, they can create that on the fly and say, what we really need here is something expedited. And, you know, this has to do with ditch inspection and, you know, final permit application. And I can go ahead and assign this to different users. So we'll send one to Jill. Final application should go to John. Gee, you know, we really need this done for this project by the 29th. And if they could do the final by the 30th, that would be great, and the final approval step. And if he rejects it for some reason, it goes back to step 1. All right, I've just created a 2-step workflow process on the fly that created tasks for Jill and Jim. And this is really powerful because information workers need the ability to create ad hoc tasks as unknown situations come up. And then when they do come up, then you want to be able to track the tasks that are assigned to different people. And so this lets you do that. All right, now I have a start approval process here. I could start it manually, or what I could do is add a business rule. Business rules are enormously powerful. Business rules let you automate so many steps that the business takes that is where you see big productivity gains. Now, business rules can be triggered off an event, such as when a record is created, or when a record is updated, or whenever a process is started, or the state changes, or you import a lot of data. That can all trigger a rule. You can also have rules that run once a month, scheduled rules. So at the end of the month, go ahead and send out this report. Timer rules. So you may say that 30 minutes after a new permit is submitted, I want these other things, reminder messages to go out. And then rule sets, of course, are just where you can stack in event rules, schedule rules, timer rules, and those are executed as a folder of rules and get done all at once. For now, though, let's just create a basic event rule, and we're just going to call this a new rule. We're going to call this new permit, something like that. All right, new permit. And I can say whenever a new permit is submitted, we want to take some action. So I could say the execution criteria is always, and the action is to start a process, and the process is manager approval. So I can say that, so every time a new permit is saved, it'll kick off this process and do a manager approval. Or I can add some criteria. I could say, well, really, we only really need to do this if certain conditions apply. For example, we could say if annual inspection is yes, then we need the manager approval before we add a new waterway that has to be inspected. So what I'm doing visually and very simply is setting up some complex logic that says, if this thing happens, then take these other actions. If this, then that. And business rules are like that. And there's no limit to just one rule. I could layer in lots of rules here. I could say, take these actions. I want you to also create a task for somebody and assign it to the record owner and fill in that detail. I could also do something like send an email to somebody and select a template. I could also change the status, update the record, add a note to a file, any number of things. This is incredibly powerful. It's something that everybody uses the platform, uses this a lot. But for now, if an annual inspection is required, let's send it through manager approval and save. All right, I just created my first business rule. So how does this really work? I'm over here and I can see that I've got manager approval. Hasn't been started. Start button is still there. Let's go ahead and create a brand new water permit. And we will do this here, Texas. We'll call this Austin. And project number, we'll call this Travis. Like Travis. Pick some dates just for grins. And it's coming up on expiration now. Austin. Some kind of capacity. And let's say it requires an annual inspection. And I'm saving it. I'm the specialist. I'm saving it. All right? You can see that when I save this record, because that criteria was met, it automatically started the process and started the process for manager approval. And if I look at it, okay, just to show you the context. And now the manager has a task that he needs to approve this new water permit. Just an example. Let's go and take a look at this. I'm going to switch my perspective back to a manager's role now. And I get to see more information, water permits, reports, staff. Let me go to tasks. And we can see that I've got a new review that's related to Austin. And I could go directly to that record, and you can see that under my task as a manager, I can look at this and say, does it look right? Is this what we want to do? Do I approve it or reject it? And I will say, it looks right, looks good, and approve it. And now I've completed that workflow. It's just that simple. And you could have many more steps if you wanted to. You know, if you go from manager review to quality assurance to field service manager to legal, customer fulfillment. I mean, you could have as many steps as you want, but the benefit here is instead of sending emails to all these people trying to coordinate activity streams and workflows, all that's managed in this system. Got a browser up here. Okay, somehow disconnected. Pardon me. Reconnect. All right, so it's not just enough to collaborate around this type of information. People also want to make better decisions. And that's where dashboarding comes in, that's where reporting comes in. That's where all these capabilities of the platform come in. All right, still having some internet connectivity issues. 1 second here. All right, we're back. Okay, so here's the dashboard we're talking about. We want to use this in a way that helps us make better decisions. I'm looking at these default dashboards and I'm thinking that's just too much information. It's not really helpful. You can drill into the dashboard and then you can begin to customize it. So I could say, show me those details behind the all water permits by state. And it'll take me directly to that report.
Rick, can you hear me? Your screen has disappeared.
I'm having internet connectivity issues. Is my screen still working?
It's currently no longer shared, so as soon as you can get it back up, you need to reshare your screen, please.
I'm no longer the presenter.
Somehow you've fallen off the line. You're still on the audio line, you've fallen off the web line. You'll need to come back in.
Can you make me the presenter?
You need to come back in order to do that.
All right.
Okay, you're back on, so give it a shot now.
Can you see my screen? Okay. All right. Well, assume you can, and stop me if you can. So
no, we can't. Can't see it, Rick.
Okay, try again. Does it work now?
You're getting there, but it's still a blank screen.
So.
All right, you're back up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, apologize everyone on the line. Internet connectivity issues still happen, unbelievably, in 2016. All right, so let's say we want to customize this report to make it more friendly, something that's more usable. Well, let's just customize it, and when I do that, it'll bring up a wizard, much like we looked at a minute ago. And let's say that just for purposes of management, what I want to do is filter this list. And I only want to look at very large capacity installations. So I'm going to just change this filter, and I'm going to say that I really only care about those things which are greater than, say, 100,000 or 100,000, right? And let's preview those results and see if that gives me what I'm looking for. All right. So I filtered it, and that looks pretty good. Next thing I'm going to say is, well, I really want to see these facilities by state and those that require annual inspections. So I'm just going to come over here to the grouping tab and say by state, and do they require an annual inspection? And let's go ahead and run that report. Okay. So for very large capacity installations, I can see that I've got 7 of them, and I can see that none of them require annual inspections. So if you have a request for this type of information, you can dynamically create reports that give you the information you may need to make the right kinds of decisions. And you can present them in multiple ways, just by customizing a report, by selecting the attributes that you care about, and then by filtering it in interesting ways. So if I take this filter down, do say this, and run it, you'll see that I've just increased my data set, giving me more information, and I can answer more questions about what's going on with the water permitting that I'm being asked to do. All right, if I want to save this, I can simply save it, and I will call this the large capacity permits, something like that, and I'm going to save it in my folder. Very good, and now I can have a very interesting capability. If I set up a report that I want to mail out on some scheduled interval on a regular basis to people who need to receive it, I can set up this report to be delivered automatically in various different ways, as PDF, as HTML, as comma separated, on any interval that I want. So we can say, you know, every Friday, or daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, go ahead and distribute this report. Everybody uses this feature. It's a very highly popular feature. But let's go ahead and back to the dashboard, where what we wanted to do is now customize the dashboard to make it more useful for us. So I'm adding a brand new widget, and I'm going to pick up a report. And it's the report that we just created, large capacity permits. I only really care about the chart here, and I'll put it on the left column of this dashboard. All right, there it is. So I can customize the dashboard, and then I can, of course, continue to customize it by role. There's a lot to this platform. You can create very complex applications that do everything from court case management, to IP service requests, to governance, risk, and compliance, to asset and fleet tracking, or partner and supplier onboarding. You name it. There's a lot of different things you can do with the platform and get it done quickly. Because our time is almost at the close, we'll conclude the demo portion now and go back to open discussion or Q&A.
Okay, great. Rick, thank you very much. We've got a couple of questions. So I think I'll just put them out there, and you and David can determine who will answer. The first is, what skill set is needed to get started building apps?
Good. Yeah, this is one of those good questions because getting really experienced help to build an application is costly, it's time-consuming, it's hard to justify. But these days, there's so many people with really excellent Excel skills that really, if you've been using Excel to build multi-worksheet applications and linking formulas, you really have all the skills you need to be able to build applications very quickly in AgileApps. Now, of course, everything is documented. There's tons of examples. If you go to our wiki, you can see tons of examples on how to do everything on the platform. And of course, there's videos that can train you on how to do certain other tasks. But if you have strong Excel skills, your business analyst can get going on this very quickly.
Okay, great. Another one is, what coding language is used to extend the platform?
Sure, yeah. Everything is based around Java, standard Java, and JavaScript. So what does that mean? For most enterprises that have standardized on Java, if you want to do something more complex, you can do it. Because this is a platform, it's extensible. That's one of the definitions of a platform, is that you can build your own code around it. You can build your own back-end processes and integrations, and all that supported with AgileApps. And you would do that using standard Java, and you would use that with JavaScript. And those are the two things you would use. And so there's ample books and training out there, and tons of people in your enterprise have already learned that as they went through college.
Okay, thank you. Another one we have is, how does one go about modernizing or converting Microsoft Access applications onto the platform?
Sure. So Microsoft Access applications tend to be not that complex, but they do require ongoing management. They do require people who know how it was put together, and so it's very difficult for someone else to pick it up and manage it moving forward. And so what a number of companies and government agencies as well, but they're just taking those applications and they're moving them into AgileApps. And in there, then it's not only easier to manage visually, but then anyone else who becomes an administrator can pick up very quickly what was done and how to manage it, just because they're interacting with the pre-built building blocks, like building business rules or building a process or building a form or customizing a form. And so it's more constrained, but it helps you make sure that any application investment you make continues forward on AgileApps. There is a little bit of a conversion to go from a Microsoft Access database to AgileApps, but you'll find that so many of the parts of the application that you had to build in Microsoft Access are provided out of the box, such as user roles, permissions, definitions, access, view control, dashboards, that really all you're focusing on moving over your data model for the item, the object that you want to manage. So it's fairly straightforward.
Okay. Another one, please, is, does AgileApps need to be on a Unix or Windows platform?
Well, in the cloud, it doesn't matter. If you want to run it in our hosted service, we run it on Red Hat Linux. That's what we recommend. And if you want to run it on your own platform within your enterprise, within your organization, you can do that as well. Red Hat Linux is the operating system that's recommended. Of course, that can be installed on bare metal or on virtual machines as well to make it easier to manage.
Okay. Another one is, how does AgileApps work with a legacy system?
Sure. So if the question is, how do you integrate with a legacy system, you do that through REST APIs. There's a lot of developer resources that help you connect to legacy systems and pull data in or push data out, whatever you wanted to do there. And so, for example, if you want to do, have a web service, I'll just go to how you configure a brand new one. REST or SOAP service, you can either load the WSDL and then map the fields, or if it's REST, you can configure the parameters. And this is where you could really tap in some of the the help from your IT team to make sure you get a couple of these things right. But it's still wizard driven, so it's something that they can do very quickly to help you get connected to pull data out of your legacy systems.
Okay, we've got just two more here. Can I connect to a data feed? Some question.
Well, I mean, if the data feed, you can certainly push data into an application via REST API. So if that's what the question is, yes, you can. So if the use case is different than that, maybe I'm not understanding it. But yes, you can push data in through any activity stream through a REST API, and it's easy to write a service that does that.
Is AgileApps a software AG product?
Yeah, it is. AgileApps is part of the one of the pillars of the digital business platform process, and that involves AgileApps and Web Methods AgileApps, Web Methods Business Process Management Suite, and we follow that combined Agile process. And so, yes, it's part of Web Methods. It's part of Software AG and the Web Methods product line. It's been part of Software AG for a number of years now.
Great. Okay, Rick, thank you very much. David, thank you very much as well. To all of our participants today, if you have time, I'd like to invite you tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for another webcast. It is titled Analytics for Anything. So if you can join us, please register on our website, softwareag.com/US, on the resources page, and just go down to the webinars by date. But again, thank you to everybody for joining us today, and Rick and David, thank you again to you for some very interesting presentations. And with that, our program is over. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.